Yes, hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and I'm joined once again by Matthew Hurley the Gaelic Statsman. We have a bumper weekend ahead of us, don't we, Matthew? I mean, 2 All-Ireland club finals. You know, it doesn't feel long ago that we were still in the county championships, but here we are, the final two, Glen against Bridget's and O'Loughlin Gaels against St. Thomas's, the last club fixtures of the season. I mean, what a year it's been.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on again, Seamus. Yeah, in fairness, when you look at the hurling in particular, you wouldn't have predicted Thomas's and O'Loughlin Gaels to reach the final. Going back all the way, like even O'Loughlin Gaels beating Ballyhead Shamrocks. I remember I was at a Cork game and looking at the phone, looking at that scoreline, it just shocked me, to be honest. And you could see the celebrations from the O'Loughlin Gaels fans afterwards when they won that. And Thomas's beating Ballygunner was arguably an even bigger shock as well. And we would have expected Ballygunner and Ballyhead to be here in 3 days' time, but no, it is the two unlikely suspects, if you want to call them. It is O'Loughlin Gaels and St. Thomas's. And to be honest, in hurling, either way, there's going to be massive celebrations, whoever wins the game. And it's going to be absolutely incredible in its own right. In the football, there's one team that you would expect to win the game, but at the same time, they're going for their first All-Ireland title. And they're the underdogs, are going for their second All-Ireland title, their first in 10 years, or 11 years, should I say. So this is going to be an absolutely brilliant battle, in fairness, between Glen and Bridget's. And yeah, looking forward to the 2 games on Sunday.
Yeah, it's just going to be a cracking day of action. Like, I mean, a lot of people are expected to attend. A lot of neutrals are expected to attend. Like Glen against St. Bridget's, it is 2 teams that you'd see the appeal and rooting for them. Glen based off the fact of what happened last year, and St. Bridget's at the fact that they've been underdogs now for a while. So we have a comment in here from Denise. Hello again. I hope Glen win this weekend. Okay, so not exactly a neutral there. I personally don't mind who wins. I think both teams have definitely emptied themselves into the championship. Matthew, do you have any slight team that you would pick to win?
I think Glen should win it. They're the obvious favourites, to be honest with you. And even when you look at their run to the final, Scottstown, I know they didn't play Kilcoo this year, but they played Kilcoo last season. Naomh Quinlan, Kilmacud Crokes, even Slot-Leal in the Derry Championship, and even Erin's Own Cargan in the quarter final. Let's not forget, they won that game by 4 points, and Tomas McCann got sent off early on in the first half in that game. So that could have ended up differently in many ways. Whereas Bridget's, other than the Corofin, Castlehaven and Boyle games, it's been really smooth sailing, more or less, for Bridget's in their club championship run. But yeah, I just think Glen, the run they've been on, beating the sides of Kilmacud, Scottstown on their way to the final, I think that makes them clear favourites in this game. But then again, even look at I know stats don't paint the whole picture, but even looking at Bridget's defence in this campaign, they've only conceded 3 goals. They've only conceded 1 goal to Culera Strandhill from Sligo, which the game didn't matter at that point. I think Culera scored in the second half of that game, and 2 against Corofin. They haven't conceded a goal in any other championship game this season, which shows their defensive capabilities. And the fact that Glen don't really have a standout forward as well, maybe that's an avenue where Bridges can beat Glen. But having said that, Bridget's have had very good forwards down through the championship games, like Bobby Nugent, like Ben O'Carroll, like Brian Durbin, like Kieran Sugru, but they're coming up against man mountains on Sunday. Michael Warnock was absolutely superb in the semi-final against Kilmacud Crokes. The 2 Mulhollands that went back, Ewan and Call, were absolutely incredible. And Kieran McFaul was missing last year for the game against Kilmacud. He's back now. He's back with a vengeance for Croke Park. So, yeah, it should be very, very interesting. Indeed, even Ryan Dugan, he got a slight injury against Kilmacud. I'm not sure he's going to recover, but if he is, that's going to be a titanic battle as well. And yes, Eddie Nolan and Shane Conan have played well in midfield for Bridget's. They're coming up against, the best midfield partnership in the club championship in Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass. And Glass, I've said it on, I think, your last show, or Aaron's last show in the All-Ireland semi-final preview. Glass needs a good game to announce himself. For Derry or Watty Graham's game, he needs a monstrous game because he's a brilliant footballer, and he got that against Kilmacud, in fairness. Can he back it up in the final? There's a lot of narratives in this final as well as the hurling, but this final should be very, very interesting. Especially, I'd be looking forward to see how Bridget's defence particularly performs against this Watty Graham's Glen side.
Yeah, and it is such an interesting battle, and like we are gonna, go into it step by step. You mentioned about Glen, we mentioned about Bridget's. We're going to start with Glen's journey to the final. Like what exactly were the key stages in making it? And to do that, let's go back to last year. They lost the All-Ireland final by a hair's breadth. I mean, they had that chance right at the end. They got off to a great start in that game against Kilmacud Crokes. And then Kilmacud took over for a long period of the game, to the point where Crokes were the deserving All-Ireland champions. And we have a comment here. Greetings from Mexico. Great channel. Thank you very much, sir. But basically, like that All-Ireland final, Kilmacud Crokes took over after Glen made the amazing start. And like, what do you think Glen can take from last year's All-Ireland final experience to maybe help them this time around?
Maybe to step up to the stage more, because I mentioned Conor Glass there, and Kevin McGorty is very, very very knowledgeable on Conor Glass in general on the JMAT podcast. Check that podcast if you haven't already. He was actually saying that Conor Glass, for Derry and for Watty Grimslane, in certain games in big stages doesn't really perform. Like, you looked at the Kilmacud game last year, you looked at the Galway All-Ireland semi-final in 2022, those two games he pointed towards in particular. But when you looked at the Kilmacud game from last year compared to the semi-final this year, there was a huge difference in how Conor Glass played. And I think he needs to produce that same performance again. And as well as that, this is a different situation for Glen now than last year, because last year they were going in against Shane Walsh, Paul Mannion, Darragh Mullins, and brilliant Kilmacud players. This year, they're going in as the clear favourites. That could wane on the team as well. That could wane on the confidence. And Bridget's will be going in under no pressure. So, so Watty Grimslane need to calm it down, do the simple things right, and get over the line. And I said on our podcast earlier on this week that it's almost like it could go two ways for the 2021 All-Ireland finals. For example, when you look at Cork, were the underdogs against Limerick, Cork folded. They absolutely, went under the pressure, and Limerick, held the pressure, held their own under the pressure. They got on with it. When you look at the football final, Mayo were the favourites, and they crumbled against Tyrone. If Watty Grimslane need more of the Limerick attitude than the Mayo attitude. I do think Glen have that. It is a question mark, because last season it's a hard one to judge. They were the underdogs going into it. They're now the favourites. Let's see how they counteract this. But even their run to the final, I would say since the Slot-Leal game, every side has gone after a throat, other than Magherafelt in the Derry final. To be honest with you, they won that 113 to 7 points. But in the other games, they beat Slot-Leal by 2 points. They beat Erin's Own Carrigan by 4, and Erin's Own Carrigan had a guy sent off, Tomas McCann, early in the first half. They beat Naomh Quinnell by 1 point. They beat Scottstown by 2, and they beat Kilmacud by 1. These are tight games. And it actually could help a team in many ways. And I mentioned on my own podcast for the semi-final preview when I had you on about it didn't transpire to be that way, but the Castlehaven and Bridges game, but this example could be going into it as well. Glen have had a battle. They've had a target on their back, I'd say, since October. Bridges have gone through the run to the final easier than Watty Glen have, and I think that could prove a difference on Sunday. And the fact as well, Glen have come up against much tougher teams than Bridges have had. So it's all for Glen to win it now, but the question is for them, can they handle the pressure, the favourites tag on the day?
That's it. And like, there's a very good recent example, which I think this game might go relatively similar to. Ballyhale, Shamrocks and Dunloy in the All-Ireland Hurling final last year in the club championship. Ballyhale were roaring favourites, and Dunloy gave them an awful scare, and Ballyhale kind of regrouped and came back and won that game. And I think like this game could be something along those lines. Like, if you look at Bridget's, they haven't had to go through the tests that maybe like that Glen have. And what's gas is that if you were to say, okay, if it was Kilmacud Crokes versus St. Bridget's in this All-Ireland club final, or if they had played against each other in the All-Ireland semi-finals, who would you have backed to win that game? If we're being honest, probably would have leaned towards Kilmacud Crokes. I know hindsight, like Bridget's are here in the final, but Glen cannot get wrapped up in that we beat Kilmacud Crokes, therefore we're going to beat Bridget's in the final. They cannot get wrapped up in that, because playing Kilmacud Crokes in the fog like that on a horrible night is so different to playing against St. Bridget's in Croke Park, wide open pitch. It does change the game. And Bridget's are coming in a perfect mindset. They're coming in, as you said, nobody expects anything from them. If they go in and give a brilliant performance in the final and Glen just are a little bit better than them on the day, nobody's going to point fingers at them. But if Glen lose this final, everyone's going to point at them and say, this was the one you should have won. This is an All-Ireland you've left behind you, everything like that. So in a way, Matthew, would you rather be in Bridget's position rather than Glen's if you were a footballer going into this final?
100% I'd rather be in Bridges' camp, because like when you look at the dynamics going into it, Bridges are thinking to themselves, this was a brilliant win against Castlehaven. The club will be absolutely delighted with this. And it's a trip to Croke Park, and there's no pressure on us. We're the underdogs going into this. Whereas Glen, after what happened last year in particular, when they claimed they were cheated, and to be fair, they were cheated in a way. Dara Mullen was on the pitch and Paul Mannion was as well the 17th player. But Kilmacud were better on the day. And this is a chance for Watty Graham's Glen to prove they are the top dogs in the country. If they don't win on Sunday, I think there'll be, as you said there'll be a lot of questions asked. With their talent that they have, Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, Danny Tallon, Ewan Mulholland, all them players have to step up. There's no, and you could argue maybe in the early stages of Ulster against Aaron's own Carrigan and Niamh Quinlan, they could have got away with performing badly and winning by a point. But I'll tell you this, they will not get away with a poor performance against Bridges and get away with a win, because Bridges have the players to punish them. Ben O'Carroll, one of them, Eddie Nolan, Brian Stack in defence, and it'll be interesting to see where Brian Stack goes on as well. Will it be Ethan Doherty?
Who would you put him
Will
on?
it be Danny Conlon? You never know.
I would put him on Ethan Doherty.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, it's a hard one actually, because everything ticked towards Ethan Doherty. Like he's the
because they didn't score that freely in the forwards against Crokes. They don't. Like you did up your scores. They don't have a Shane Walsh. They don't have a Brian Hurley that you need to put someone on. And maybe that person will reveal himself on the final. Maybe Danny Tallon will play the best football we've ever seen him play. But I just don't think it's as nailed on banker that you need to put Brian Stack on him. And I think it's a game where you could actually put Brian Stack out in the half-back line or around the middle and let him help the lads deal with Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley and Kieran McFall, and that he could get stuck in around there. It's an interesting game for Brian Stack. I personally would put him on Ethan Doherty out around the middle.
And maybe that could be the Bridges' advantage as well, having a player of Brian Stack's caliber pushing up. Maybe it will. We'll have to see. But even their midfield, maybe even he goes as the third midfielder to help out Shane Canaan and Eddie Nolan. And don't get me wrong, Shane Canaan and Eddie Nolan are excellent midfielders, Roscommon inter-county players for a reason. But if Brian Stack is in there and coming up against Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass, that is what you need. Because they are going to give it to Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass. And funnily enough, Emmett Bradley's probably been the better of the two so far at the club championship, but Conor Glass is the highest caliber. So both of them are capable of good performances. And even McFall, like it'd be interesting if there's actually a three midfielder battle with Kieran McFall, Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley against Eddie Nolan, Shane Canaan, and Brian Stack. That's a battle.
That is a battle. And it could be game deciding. Really could be. And then the other way that I'm going to turn it to you now is Ryan Duggan did a great job on Shane Walsh. And then it wasn't Ryan Duggan, it was Michael Warnock was on Shane Walsh, and Ryan Duggan was on Paul Mannion. Who takes Ben O'Carroll?
I would have to think Michael Warnock. Because even look at his post-match interview, even on RT Radio after the Kilmacud game, he was saying that he's just not going to give Shane Walsh an inch. He's not going to give him, even the fog there that day. He actually said that if he knew where the ball was, he's never going to tell Shane Walsh where it was. He's that kind of guy to get inside your head. And I think he will do a brilliant job on Brian Stack, or Ben O'Carroll, should I say. But you could then put Ryan Duggan on Bobby Nugent or Brian Durham. Who goes on Kieran Sugru? Then that's the question. Would it be Cathal Mulholland, because Union, the other Mulholland, seems to go up and down the pitch. So he's not usually a man marker per se. So you'd have to imagine Cathal Mulholland goes on Kieran Sugru. Then you look at the other forwards, there isn't much there for Bridges after that. Conor Carville, I would imagine, would take Brian Derwin, and then Bobby Nugent will be taken by Ryan Dugan. So Glen, I think, are well set on their matchups. And it's going to be interesting to see what Brian Stack does. So I'm genuinely intrigued what he does. Will he push up at the midfield? Will he go back on Danny Talon? Will he stick with Ethan Doherty? We'll have to see. It should be very, very interesting on Sunday.
That's it. We have a funny comment in here. Are you the lad that played pool in Pats? Yeah, I had many games of pool on the St. Pat's pool tables in Java. Quality spot if you've never been. But moving on from that onto other Bridges forwards. You mentioned Bobby Nugent, you mentioned Brian Derwin. They were very impressive in the opening few minutes against Castlehaven as well. And then the likes of Conor Hand, Robbie Dolan, like they're really, really important as well. They chip in with a couple of crucial scores. Like, if you had to nail it down, key matchups, mano a mano, like who do you think is the key matchups? Is for me, it is, remember that you listed off the 3v3 in the midfield. That's the key for me as to who wins the game. It's who can supply their forward line with the most ball. I think, if I have to be honest here, I think Glen have the better defense, and I think they have the better midfield. You could argue they maybe have the better goalkeeper too. But I think Bridges have the better forwards.
Yeah.
And I think that then leaves it down to what type of game gets played. If we get a low-scoring game where it's a bit of an arm wrestle, I fancy Glen to take it by 4 or 5 points. I really do. I think Glen are just so used to being like, okay, we're playing slow, methodical football, are we? That's fine. We've been doing this all throughout the Ulster Championship, and we've beaten Kilmacud Crokes playing this way. We've beaten Scottstown playing this way. But I think if it's helter-skelter and it's who's going to score more than the others, I think Bridges have more quality in their forward line than Glen do. So I think if it's a high-scoring game, I actually back Bridges.
Yeah, I kind of would to that extent as well. But then again, yes, Bridges have had a better forward line going into this game. But you see what Danny Talon did in the first few minutes of last year's All-Ireland final. And it's hard really to remember that when you go back over the year 2023. But he scored an absolutely brilliant goal at Grove Park, where he sends dummy, I think, on one of the Kilmacud Crokes defenders. I think it was Tim Clancy, correct me if I'm wrong, where he just bounces the ball, goes through and goal, bangs it in past Conor Verus, an unbelievable finish. And Danny Talon has the experience of playing at Grove Park, whereas Ben O'Carroll, when was the last time actually? He played against Dublin in the group stage. So, Danny Talon has played in Croke Park, I think, twice actually for Glen. He played against Mike Cullen in last year's All-Ireland semi-final as well last year. Ben O'Carroll, in contrast, I think has only played there once in that group stage game against Dublin. So maybe that could be a factor as well, playing at the Croke Park pitch. You've seen it, I don't know, did anybody watch the intermediate final last week now, but it seemed as if St. Patrick Cullyhanna players from Armagh were much more used to the Croke Park surface than Kilnamatra from Cork were. Because like Aidan Nugent, Ross McQuillan, Jason Duffy would have been more used to playing Croke Park than the likes of Dan Deneen and Ty Corkery, for example. So that could be a factor too. Bridges probably won't be as used to Croke Park as Watty Graham's Glen are. Like Conor Glass has played Croke Park many a time over the last few years. Emmett Bradley, I'd imagine, has as well. Ethan Doherty has as well. So the names on this list are well used to the Croke Park pitch. I think that's going to provide a big factor too. But I agree with you on your point that Bridges have a better forward line. Like Ben O'Carroll, for example, 7 goals, 32 points in the whole championship. It's just ridiculous scoring, isn't it? And it's going to be hard for Watty Graham's Glen to stop him. But this is what makes this game so intriguing, because Glen have the better defence, but Bridges have the better attack. It'd be interesting to see how Bridges' attack performs well against this Bridges defence, because yes, Castlehaven and Corofin are good teams, but they don't necessarily have brilliant man markers as Watty Graham's Glen have. Yeah. So in that aspect, it's going to be very interesting to see how the likes of Ben O'Carroll, the Bobby Nugents, the Brian Derwins perform against this mass Watty Graham's Glen defence.
Yeah. Okay. So we've ran through it, and I think we've highlighted the key points. Decision time. If you were to give your prediction of a summary of what type of game that we're going to expect, what type of game do you expect, and who do you expect to come out on top?
I expect a cagey game. I expect it to be low scoring because of the way Watty Graham's Lane have the better defence, and the favourites for this game are Watty Graham's Lane. And what they want to do is to sit back and get some pressure. And what Watty Graham's Lane are capable of, and it showed in the Kilmacud game and in some aspects against Scottstown later on. Once they sit back, they rob the ball inside the 45 or between the 45 and the 65, and they break fast. Eaton Doherty is one lad that absolutely burns for pace going up. Danny Talon the same. Connor Glass, Emmett Bradley. The energy of these guys is absolutely incredible. I would back Watty Graham's Lane to win this game. I think it'll be about 3-4 points, but I think it'll be very, very close, probably up until half time. I won't be surprised if Bridges led at half time. But what would make the difference? I didn't mention this, obviously, the third quarter. You looked at Bridges' third quarter against Castlehaven, it was poor. They didn't score anything. And if Castlehaven didn't allow Bridges to score in that time, imagine what Watty Graham's Lane can do. Because Glen are a lot better team than Castlehaven are. And you looked at what Watty Graham's Lane did in 10 minutes of the third quarter against Kilmacud Crokes. They pushed on. And I just honestly think they took their eye off the ball against Kilmacud in the last few minutes. That got them back into the game. And they struggled towards the end of it because of it. So it'll be interesting to see the third quarter. I think Glen will have the edge in that particular facet of play. And that is why I'm going to back Watty Graham's Lane to win this game by about 3 or 4 points. But I would not be surprised at the slightest if Bridges led at halftime in this game.
Yeah, and you know what? We're either going to be both geniuses or we're both going to be holding our heads in our hands, because I actually think Glen by 3 as well is exactly the way that I was going with. I think that the first half will be very tight, similar to how you think. I think Bridges will maybe lead by a point at halftime. They'll put on a little surge towards the break. It will look like Glen are maybe letting it slip away. Bridges will turn off in the third quarter like they did against Castlehaven. Glen will get a few crucial scores. They'll move ahead by 2 or 3 points and they'll hold on towards the end. And I think they'll have like a Carl Lacey, Donegal v Kerry 2012 style point where it will, be the icing on the cake, the insurance point that will put them 3 ahead or something and finish the game off. It's Glen's time. They have to do it. Like when you look at the last year's final, the way they lost to Kilmacud Crokes, they felt robbed. Even though Kilmacud were the better team on the day, they felt robbed, rightfully so, when you look at the 17 lads on the pitch. But now they're back in the final again. There's no excuses. They've beaten Kilmacud Crokes. They're up against St. Bridget's now. St. Bridget's are coming in as underdogs. They're not going to fear them at all. But if Glen don't win this one, it will be an All-Ireland left behind them. And they need to avail of the opportunity that they have. And I think they will. I think they're going to win by 3 points. But it's going to be a fascinating game to watch either way. And it's not the only final that is on the weekend. Of course, that is the last final that will take place. But the one just before it at 1:30 is the All-Ireland Club Hurling final of 23/24. Completely made a mess out of that. It's O'Loughlin Gales from Kilkenny against St. Thomas's of Galway. And as you said at the start, 2 teams that you wouldn't have expected to get to this point. We would have expected probably Ballyhale Shamrocks against Ballygunner, especially when we seen the draw. You mentioned those 2 shocks. Which one do you think was the bigger one?
Might be an unpopular opinion now, but I think the O'Loughlin Gales beating Ballyhale was bigger. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because that was in normal time.
Yeah.
And they had one chance to do it. They did it. And St. Thomas's, to be fair, yes, it was a big shock against Ballygunner, but they went all the way to the penalty shootout. And Ballygunner could have easily won that game in normal time or extra time. So for me, I think O'Loughlin Gales beating Ballyhale, and the way they beat them as well already on the championship. And when you look at Thomas's, they have reached the All-Ireland semi-final, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years, and they've always fell at the last hurdle. So Thomas's would have been dying to get over the line. O'Loughlin Gales, a long time without a Kilkenny championship, and for them to beat Ballyhale was an outstanding achievement. But in terms of this final overall, I think it's unlike Glen and Bridges, where Glen you'd be thinking if they lose this, it's an All-Ireland left behind them, and Bridges, it'll be a massive shock if they win. Either way, this is an incredible final either way, because you don't know who's going to win this. Seriously, it's going to be a point either way. Neither side probably would have expected to get here. They are here now. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. And it's interesting as well. Thomas's probably have the better attack. It's similar to the football again. They have a better attack, but O'Loughlin Gaels have the better defence. And those three lads in particular, but Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, Paddy Deegan. Three of those are probably the three best defenders in the country. Never mind Kilkenny. So it's going to be interesting to see how Thomas has come up against him. Who will Mikey Butler go on? Will he go on Ian Burke? Will he go on Conor Cooney? We'll have to see once the throw-in happens on Sunday. But I'm definitely looking forward to this game. And either way, it's going to be a shock.
Well, that's it. It's going to be an absolutely outrageous contest. And like when you look at it, like one of the things that I always analysed it with is, I know it sounds absolutely bizarre to say this, but for this final, there's so much on the line. Like, I'll give you an example when I explain how I'm talking about it. Say, for example, Dublin versus Mayo in 2020 over the pandemic final. That final didn't feel like a huge deal because it was a Mayo team that was very much in transition. They had introduced so many new players into the side. It was a Dublin team that you knew would probably be back in the final in the next 2 or 3 years. And both sides went into that thinking, like, if we win it, we win it. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world. Because both teams knew, that they would be back in the final probably very soon. This one, when are O'Loughlin Gaels and St. Thomas is going to get to the All-Ireland final again? St. Thomas has found it very hard to hold on to the Galway Championship. O'Loughlin Gaels are going to absolutely have a fight for their lives to get out of the Kilkenny Championship next year, let alone get past the Ballygunner or whoever comes out of Munster next year. So when is the next time that one of these sides will be in the All-Ireland final? And that leads to it being such a massive game for the two teams. And I think they will both feel it. I think there'll be a lot of mistakes at the start of this game. There'll be a lot of dropped balls. There'll be a lot of missed pickups, a lot of nerves in the stadium, because I think they'll both be acutely aware just how good an opportunity this is. If you can take an All-Ireland title in the era of Ballyhale, Shamrocks and Ballygunner, like, fair play to you.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, even looking at the Kilkenny Championship next season, not just Ballyhale, but Bennettsbridge only lost to O'Loughlin Gaels by 3 points this year. And Bennettsbridge beat Ballyhale Shamrock. So that's another team that you could add to the role in Kilkenny. There are plenty of teams that will go for O'Loughlin Gaels' throat next season.
There was another team as well, wasn't there, that barely lost to Ballyhale just before the O'Loughlin Gaels game?
I'm not sure off the top of my head who it was.
Was it James? It wasn't James Stevens. Was it Tullaroan?
It could have been, actually. Could have been.
Okay, put it in the comment, guys, if you have it. It's not off the top of my head, but I know that TJ Reid saved them right at the end of the game, just before the O'Loughlin Gaels game. And me and Aaron were saying, okay, they've had their slip up. And then they went out in the next round.
Yeah, and you look at Ballyhale's talents, that can't go to waste next year. You have to imagine you're going to win the Kilkenny Championship next year. So it's almost like a do or die for O'Loughlin Gaels.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's going to be. Like, Thomas's, to be fair, I think they could even win the Galway Championship next season. I know they've been put to their pin or collar in previous seasons by the likes of Clarenbridge over the last few seasons, or Loughrea. But I still think Thomas's are a good side in Galway, and they should win it again next season. But again, with these two, they don't necessarily have brilliant players in every position. I don't want to have offence with either of them, but when you look at Ballygunner and Ballyhale, they had every position. There's an inter-county player. That's an unreal player. That's one of the best players in the country. But when you look at these sides, other than the three lads in the O'Loughlin Gaels defence, neither side have brilliant talented players. Like, I'll provide an example in the O'Loughlin Gaels attack. Mark Bergen has scored 62 points. The next top scorer for O'Loughlin Gaels is Owen Wall with 3-3. That tells you they do not have the best attackers. But what I noticed about O'Loughlin Gaels in the last few games, especially against Rory O'Cushendall and Athena in the Leinster final, they're willing to battle. Even when things are going against them, they're willing to battle. And it should be very interesting to see if they bring that battle out onto the field on Sunday. Thomas's, they're kind of the unknown quantity, aren't they? Because nobody probably has watched the Galway Hurling Championship in depth to judge them in a way. They only judge them over the Ballygunner game. Whereas O'Loughlin Gaels, they've been judged maybe since the Kilkenny final, then the Leinster Championship, and then against Rory O'Cushion Dawes. So maybe O'Loughlin Gaels would have been analysed more than Thomas's, which makes this game even more interesting as well. So it's a tough one to call, it really is.
But the thing that I always respected about O'Loughlin Gaels was when you look at it, Brian Hogan has got it right. He really has. I think they are squeezing every drop of potential out of that team that they could. He has, Butler, Deegan, and Hugh Lawler there. So he has David Fogarty there, wing back, who's impressed me as well. But basically, he has the three main lads in defence that are leading from the front, and then they lead the charge, and then they keep it tight at the back, and Mark Bergen does the rest up front. And that has been enough to get them to the All-Ireland final. St. Thomas's, on the other hand, I agree with you on the unknown quantity thing. Like, a lot of people haven't seen much of St. Thomas's, but the reality is they have a lot of players as well who are unknown quantities, in the sense of you don't know what you're going to get from them on a given day. Like, Conor Cooney has the potential to be one of the best forwards in the country, but then sometimes he doesn't perform to his best. Whereas in that semi-final against Ballygunner, he hit over pretty much every free he got. He scored 13 points from frees. And that was a massive, massive contributor in them getting over the line, because Pádraig Mahoney on the other side missed quite a few vital frees for Ballygunner. But Cooney at the same time could turn up in this final and hit 11 wides from frees himself. Let's say, like, he has to hit form. You've got Aina Burke there in the forwards, who's been incredible for St. Thomas's for years, but it hasn't hit form for him with Galway. Why is that? Is there something that when it comes to the big stage, this is the perfect opportunity for him to grab Henry Shefflin's attention with both hands if he absolutely tears this final apart, when he will be picked up by a Hugh Lawler or a Mikey Butler or something like that. So it's the perfect opportunity for both of these teams. David Burke being back is outrageous when you consider the injury that he had. I don't know how he's still walking, let alone playing in an All-Ireland final. It's a massive opportunity for both of these counties. And I don't know who I'm leaning to. It's not like Glen and Bridget's. I think you can see a victory for either team here. You really, really can. And look, Thomas's, the last time they were here, like, they lost. The last time that they were here, they lost. And O'Loughlin Gaels, as I said, are flying on the coat of, this is our only golden chance, really, to get here and to win this All-Ireland final. And they also, let's be honest, they've had a bit of a chip on their shoulder throughout the championship, of a bit of a put some respect on our name. Because the minute the Ballyhale Shamrocks were out, everyone all of a sudden was like, oh, Nafina could win Leinster, or, Cushion Dal could now make it to the All-Ireland final. And O'Loughlin Gaels, who took out Ballyhale, must be thinking, hang on, we beat Ballyhale. Why shouldn't we be the ones to go all the way to the final and win it? And no doubt Brian Hogan is using that rhetoric to his team to fire them up. It's such a hard one to call.
Definitely is. And O'Loughlin Gaels have a chance of providing a bit of history. I know Kilkenny did this in 2020, but the Kilkenny Intermediate and Junior champions won the All-Ireland last weekend. And O'Loughlin Gaels had the chance to make it a 3 in a row. So there's a lot of pressure on them. There really is. Thomas as well. David Burke, as you mentioned there, how is he actually playing? It's unbelievable in his own right. But yeah,
and he's been brilliant as well. I think we need to mention him. He's been brilliant.
What will be crucial as well is sidelines. Fintan Burke, he's well capable of putting over a sideline cut. He's probably one of the best.
That's
Shane Cooney, another good player. And what would be vital, I think, is the free taking. You mentioned with Pádraig Mahoney missing so many frees, or Conor Cooney taking his. It'll be a battle between Conor Cooney and Mark Bergen, who have been exemplary throughout the championship, but both of them have to have unreal games for their side.
Who would you rather have on the frees?
That's like saying, who would you rather have in soccer, Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo? Because two of these guys are incredible at free taking. Mark Bergen probably hasn't had the luck in terms of getting into the Kilkenny team. Conor Cooney has with Galway, obviously, but Mark Bergen, what I noticed with O'Loughlin is every time he steps forward to take a free, I'm like, okay, that's a point.
Yeah.
Same as Conor Cooney. Once you have that mindset with those sorts of players, you know they're good free takers. Who would I rather have? It's a tough one.
It's so hard, isn't it? Like, genuinely, who would you going into this final? Because we have identified this. Free taking is going to be a huge part of this game because like a lot of the scores for both of these sides have come from frees. Mark Bergen or Conor Cooney, which one would you rather have?
I'll edge it towards Mark Bergen.
Yeah, it's so hard though because Cooney hit 13, you're right, in the semi-final.
Yeah, it's going to be
I think
tough.
Cooney has more experience being an inter-county free taker. Does that count for much in this game? Because Bergen hit over a lot of frees against Nafina in the Leinster final, and that was in Croke Park.
Yeah. And the Croke Park experience as well?
Yeah, that's it.
That could.
How long has it been since Cooney took a shot at the Croke Park post?
Against Limerick, was it? The All-Ireland semi-final?
Against Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final. Like, that's a long time ago. That's 7 months ago.
Yeah. And Limerick aren't the side to concede stupid frees either. So he may not have taken.
He wasn't on the frees that day. Sure, Evan Nyland probably would have been taking them.
Probably. So, yeah, it's a tough one. Like, but you could argue, yes, Mark Bergen doesn't have inter-county experience, but he's more experience in taking frees than Conor Cooney has over the last few games. I'd
probably go with Bergen as well, to be honest. I think Bergen's a little bit more consistent than Cooney. I think Cooney I think both at their best, probably go Conor Cooney because he was at his best against Ballygunner. But I've seen him have games where he doesn't hit the same heights. I think Bergen's a little bit more of a safer bet. It's massive. It's so hard to call. Cooney has the potential to basically be a match winner in this game for St. Thomas's, and that does bring me on to official prediction time. But before we get there, matchups. What matchups we mentioned about in the football? We said we highlighted the 3v3 potential in the middle. We're anticipating Brian Stack might be moved further out the field. In the hurling final, what are the key matchups?
I think whoever is taken by Mikey Butler is going to get some treatment.
Yeah.
And it'll be a question for from a O'Loughlin Gaels point of view, who would you put in a Burke on Mikey Butler because of the way he scored for play in this championship, or would you put him on Conor Cooney because of his inter-county experience? It's a tough one for O'Loughlin Gaels. I'd personally put him on Ian Burke because you even looked at the Ballygunner game. He had
on Conor Cooney.
Yeah. But then again, Paddy Deegan, would you not give him license to roam? Paddy Deegan.
Maybe put David Fogarty on Cooney if he moves out around the middle. Fogarty's been impressive. It's his perfect opportunity to put his hand up for a Kilkenny jersey next year. And
Hugh Lawler, you can't forget him.
Hugh Lawler would be an incredible midfielder as well. Like, to be honest, I'm surprised he's played fullback. I was surprised initially that they didn't try and play him around midfield because I think he'd be a brilliant midfielder as well.
Yeah, it's a thought process, definitely. Like you see it with even in Cork Championship, Maurice Shanley, a Cork defender playing midfield for Clonagilty. It has been done before. So
I don't think they'll move him now. I think think they'll go with the horse that has got them here. They'll go with what has taken them in to this point. I think if I had to pick, I think they'll probably put Mikey Butler on Éanna Burke. They'll leave Hugh Lawler to patrol the full back line, and they'll probably put either David Fogarty on Cooney and let Paddy Deegan roam, or they'll put Paddy Deegan straight on to Conor Cooney.
Yeah, it should be very, very interesting. But even look at the O'Loughlin Gates forwards, there's not really many to pick from, and there's not many defenders to pick from. It's a tough one. Who would you put? Well, Mark
Bergen, is he dangerous enough from play, in your opinion?
He did prove it against Rory O'Cushendall in the semi-final.
Yeah.
I will say that, but that was one game. So you don't know. It's a tough
I don't
one.
think do you think it's worth, my point is, do you think it's worth
Yeah.
moving Shane Cooney and Fintan Burke out of the positions that they've been in?
Maybe put Shane Cooney on him and let Fintan
would.
Burke, like what Paddy Deegan's down the other in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Because Fintan Burke is capable of that and capable of getting some monster scores from wing back. So maybe that's a thought that could go into for St. Thomas's. And what's crucial as well, the midfield, and in and around the middle, St. Thomas's have Evan Duggan, who was the man of the match, deservedly so in the All-Ireland semi-final, and David Burke, who is just an incredible athlete. And O'Loughlin Gaines don't necessarily have a good midfield. Cian Law is there, who's a decent player, but he's not really inter-county standard, if you know what I mean. So Thomas's could win the midfield department.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. But then again, O'Loughlin Gaels have the tendency to get over the line no matter what. And that proves a lot as well. So it's going to be interesting.
Okay. Well, we'll do this for Jack now after a second. Jack says, hello, just after subscribing, if you have time, can you predict the provincial preseason competitions towards the end of the video? I can give one quick answer on them straight after, like just who we think is going to take it. But we will quickly give our prediction and preview to the All-Ireland Club Hurling Final. So our official stamp on who we think is going to take it. And then Jack will get around to giving our prediction for who we think is going to win the preseason competitions. The All-Ireland Club Hurling Final of 2023/2024. It's O'Loughlin Gaels. It's St. Thomas's. It's an All-Ireland Club Final that, as we said, both these sides have to grab this opportunity while they can. Who do you think is going to grab this opportunity on the weekend?
So hard.
So hard to call.
So and as you mentioned before, Seamus, you wouldn't be surprised if either side win it.
Yeah.
You could see either side doing it. I'm going to edge it to O'Loughlin Gaels because of the way they got out of Kilkenny, because of the way they get over the line no matter what, even in the Fina game and Rory O'Cushendall in that semi-final, where they easily could have lost it. I'm going to go O'Loughlin Gaels to get their name on the trophy. And as well as that, we mentioned at the start of the chat about this particular final that Ballyhale Shamrocks will be going for O'Loughlin Gaels' throat next season. And that'll be in their minds as well. So I'm going to go O'Loughlin Gaels to grab that opportunity while they can.
Yeah, grab the opportunity of winning that All-Ireland title, because it's Ballyhale and Ballygunner will be back next year. That's no doubt about that. It's crazy because at the start of the video, I was genuinely tipping St. Thomas's. And the more we've talked, the more I'm like, oh, I could see O'Loughlin Gaels winning because they're such warriors. And if it comes down to a scrap, like for the game, I think O'Loughlin Gaels have more leaders like that will maybe take them over the line. But I don't know. St. Thomas's, this is what... Does one performance completely change? Because I remember thinking Ballygunner were 100% going to win. I'll stick with my prediction. I'll go Thomas's. But I'm not as confident in it as I was before we started talking about this game. I'm probably going to go Thomas's by 1. Genuinely as close as you could possibly be. I'm going to go Thomas's by 1 point. It's going to be so close. It's going to be so close and well worth tuning in. Make sure both games on TG Cahir, watch them. And TG Cahir's coverage is fantastic. I think we can both agree with that. God bless Brian Tyres. Can we just say that for 1 second? God bless that man. Watching the Kilmacud Crokes versus Glen game, I was thinking, that is from the tiniest bit of commentary that I've done, I was just watching that game thinking, this is every commentator's worst nightmare. You have no idea who that is. You can't even see the players, let alone the numbers on their backs, and everybody's expecting you to know what's going on. Like, no one knows what's going on.
I mean, what I would say about Brian Tyres as well, Seamus, compared to commentators at club or whatever, I was watching a schools game the other day, and there was no fog whatsoever. It was just winter conditions on an AstroTurf pitch. And they were saying, please bear with us. The numbers on the back are a bit blurry or whatever, and we can't see the numbers. Whereas I could see the numbers on the TV, to be honest with you. But when you look at Brian Tyres' commentary, he didn't complain about the numbers, quite honest. He got on with it.
There was one time, the only time I heard him say it, he said at Oscar, he said, like, Muleshke ni Ekum K will on Lero Egg. which is my mistake. I can't see who has the ball. like, that was the level that game had gone to. I've had the privilege of meeting him. He's an absolute gent. So I just kind of wanted to take the opportunity to give him a shout out as well. Also give a quick shout out, like at the end of this, we'll briefly talk on that. The preseason competitions. Do you have in your mind who you expect to win? The only one that I'd be confident of is I'd expect Dublin to win the O'Byrne Cup. Like, we gave a very strong performance against Wexford in that semi-final. So now we're in the O'Byrne Cup final. I'd be confident about that one. What are you backing for the other preseason competitions?
It's a tight one. It depends really how teams prepare for them. And I would back Dublin to win the O'Byrne Cup, but as we said in previous videos, what's the point of the competition? But anyway, in the FBD,
Dublin are using their D team in this competition. They're putting in whoever. Like, also, Jack, really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Absolute gentleman. While we were speaking about gentlemen, that was an absolute gentleman, Darren Maloney. Yeah, what about the McKenna Cup? That one's, I'm thinking, very interesting, that one.
The narratives around this is brilliant for a pre-season competition, isn't it? Mickey Hart against Jim McGuinness.
Oh, yeah. That won't be the first time they play against each other.
It won't be. Hopefully it won't be the
last.
Yeah, they play in the Ulster quarterfinal. So maybe it's either going to be absolutely feisty in this game, or there's going to be a bit of shadow boxing.
Yeah, so, like it could be like, you remember that Tyrone-Dublin game in the Super 8s a few years ago?
Yeah.
Where just neither of them did anything. They were both just like waiting for, like, because I remember Jim McConnelly came in that game. It was 2019, that was.
Yeah.
Remember that?
So I remember that, yeah.
The All-Ireland final.
That was the same group as Cork and Roscommon, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was decided to go through.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. What a farce that was.
Yeah. But anyway, no, I'd expect that Donegal will take that. I think Jim will take it very seriously.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Donegal as well. And hopefully you won't play any 17-year-olds in this game to get them in trouble. We'll move on. In the Connacht FBD Cup, I would say Roscommon. Apparently, this is their 10th FBD Cup final in a row. And take that what you will. So I'm going to go for Roscommon in that game. And the McGrath Cup final is actually been moved to Saturday, not Friday night now, because of a frozen pitch in Parky Rin. So I am going to it nonetheless. The Cliffords are missing. I think Cork would probably take it more seriously than Kerry will. So I'm just going to go for Cork to win that game. But it mean nothing in the grand scheme of things.
I'd be interested to see Dylan Gainey in that game.
Yeah.
Be interested to see him, because he's one that I've listed to keep an eye on. Denise says I'd go for Galway in the FBD League. Yeah, I mean, like these competitions, I think it's a question of who actually goes for it in these competitions more than the other ones. Like for example, like Dublin haven't won all the O'Byrne Cups in the period that they've been winning the All-Irelands. So you can't tell me that Dublin aren't good enough to win the O'Byrne Cup in the same year that they're winning the All-Ireland titles and winning the Leinster Championships. You can't tell me that they're not good enough to at least make the final. They got knocked out by Offaly last year in the O'Byrne Cup, and then Offaly proceeded to pull out of the competition and I think it was Louth offered a walkover to Longford, and then they ended up playing in the final against Longford. Like, just bizarre. But this year's O'Byrne Cup has been ran a little bit better, and there hasn't been any real issues, thank God. I mean, if you're going to do the competition, do it right. And the competitions have been ran better this year anyway. But just a quick word before we wrap up on the retirement of Dean Rock. Obviously, he stepped away from the Dublin GAA team for 2024. I mean, perfect way to go out. Dean Rock's last kick for Dublin was a point in the All-Ireland final to put us 2 points in front against Kerry, and that pretty much sealed the All-Ireland title. Absolutely incredible career. All-Irelands in 2013, 2015, and did the 6 in a row up until 2020. Finishes it off with his 8th All-Ireland title in 2023. Outstanding servant for Dublin GAA.
Brilliant. And brilliant achievement for Dean Rock to do so. And when you think about it, in the first 2 seasons of his Dublin career, he wasn't really a standout for Dublin in 13 and 14. He grew his way into the panel and he proved to be an excellent footballer. Say what you will about Dean Rock, he's a free taker, he doesn't score enough from play. I have actually stats that I made up from some from Wikipedia up until 2021, and then in the last 2 years I did myself, and then I added it up. Across the league and championship, Dean Rock scored 24 goals and 602 points for Dublin. It's insane. It really is insane. And to break it down, 13 goals, 293 points in the championship, and 11 goals, 309 points in the league. So incredible service for Dublin GA. And probably one of the best free takers that we've seen in our generation. And probably the stand-up moment for Dean Rock. There's a few. Two that I remember in particular, the All-Ireland final in 2017, where Lee Key controls the GPS at Dean Rock when he was taking the free, and he still puts it over to win the All-Ireland for Dublin. And as well, the quickest All-Ireland final goal ever, I think it is, to this day, in the 2020 final against Mayo. And yeah, that's an achievement that will live with him forever as well. And the top scorer in Dublin GA history, deservedly so. And hopefully him and Niamh will enjoy retirement together as well. Obviously, she was a brilliant player for Dublin in LGFA too. So, yeah, rest of the coach now for Dean Rock. And, yeah, what a career.
Yeah, no, absolutely outstanding Gaelic football. And I just want to say that as well. Dean, absolutely outstanding servant to Gaelic football. Dean Rock was not just Dublin, but to Gaelic football as well. Like when you think of his clutch moments, kicking the winner against Mayo in the 2017 final, dodging the GPS, the quickest goal, as you said, in All-Ireland final history against Mayo in 2020. But one of my favourite Dean Rock moments ever was him scoring the equaliser against Kerry in 2019 in the first game. Talk about a clutch player. Like for him to step up and go, give me the ball, I'll put this over. Like that's the leader that he was, not just for Dublin, but for Ballymun Kickham's as well. He was absolutely fantastic for years. And then, yeah, I mean, for him with his last kick in the Dublin jersey to score the last point of the All-Ireland final against Kerry, to basically seal the win. There's not a better way to go out. And like Dean, absolutely huge respect for him. Same thing for Niamh McAvoy as well. Hope the two of them enjoy retirement now. Life after the Dublin scene be a lot more relaxing, I take it. But outstanding careers for both of them. 8 All-Ireland medals for Dean, like just unbelievable. And Niamh as well, part of that 4 in a row Dublin team. Like just absolutely incredible. So yeah, well deserved for both of them. And that concludes our episode of who we think will win these All-Ireland finals. We have agreed on the football, disagreed on the hurling, but I'm very nervous to disagree on the hurling. If I've gone for St. Thomas's, Matthew's gone for O'Loughlin Gales, and we've both gone for Glen to take the football title. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching this, I will be on Matthew's channel in, well, very soon. Not sure exactly the time, but we'll be previewing also the All-Ireland football final and All-Ireland hurling club finals as well. So make sure to tune into that as well. And yeah, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode. Until the next one, take care.